I'm Len Knight.
My name is Toby Rudolf.
And I don't know what I'm doing.
What are we doing?
We are stuck in the middle.
A Stuck in the Middle podcast, it's the shit.
That's it.
Yes. Yeah.
You're an idiot for not watching it. Welcome to another episode of Stuck in the Middle with my good friend Toby, Tobias, Eric Rudolf, and a special guest, Denan the People's Beak, Kemp.
Round of applause for Denan Kemp.
Yes,
Thanks, boys.
just a bloke in the bar.
Thanks for having me, boys. What a setup. What
I
a
know,
setup.
We did nothing.
Yeah, no, it's all ours. We built it.
Yeah, obviously we built it from scratch.
Yeah.
Doing better than I was doing. I was doing it from my lounge room with like these two media pop-up walls that you would Velcro material onto. And so on the camera, it looked like a real wall, but really it was just material.
So when you first started, like, how long were you doing your podcast for before it became the second best podcast in Australia, behind ours, obviously?
It was the best for a bit until you started.
I know, but look, it was bound to
Okay.
happen eventually.
Well, like, everyone, you can't stay at the top for too long, but thanks for warming up the throne for us to come on in. And we
Boys, look, if
appreciate
there's-
you paving that way as the first pioneer in Rugby League podcast.
If there's two blokes I'd like to replace me, it's you two.
Yeah.
Every time I
Cute.
met you, I knew you had it in you. You know?
You're so cute.
He's just trying to butter
Yeah.
us up to come and make sure we get complacent so we can take
Yeah.
that spot again. Don't fall for it, Toby.
No,
Fuck you, Denan.
no, I'm
He's-
suckling. I'm a leech. I want to rise with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can do that for you.
I'm
can
trying to
do that.
rise in the TikTok world, and that's kind of your vibe at the moment. Well, Toby's vibe.
He's dropped the ball a little bit, Toby.
Yeah, has dropped the ball a bit.
He's on thin ice, as our producer is too. He's
It seems like the only one that's got guaranteed a gig is you at the moment.
somehow, because I might be out of a job of football. So.
True. Taking on podcasting full time.
Yeah.
It's podcasting genuinely. I'm trying to think of like the equivalent of yesteryear that everyone has a podcast now.
Yeah.
Oh, what was the thing before that?
Yeah,
Bebo?
what was the thing?
OnlyFans?
OnlyFans. Bebo, MySpace?
What about when OnlyFans said that they were no longer going to do like nude content and that?
When did they say that?
Was that for like? Was that just for
It was about
political
20
reasons?
seconds. No, I think it was because like the like Visa and not Visa specifically, but the payment methods
They
were putting
weren't-
pressure on, saying like we don't want to be kind of a part of this.
Associated. Yeah. But then they realised they were getting bank and they go, oh, we might be able to bypass our recent statements and you guys continue on as is and we get free subscriptions and we'll move on.
When is it? Would you guys do an OnlyFans?
100%.
How honestly, how much a year each would you have to earn from OnlyFans to say I will do that? And like you can, doesn't mean you necessarily have to be on there nude the whole time, but you've got to do, I guess, risky stuff.
100K.
It's not high enough for me. Hey.
In
do it.
Sydney,
100K. Oh, yeah, but
Sydney
like,
get your
career's
bloody
done.
half
So
a
you're
bedroom.
not playing foot anymore because you can't be a footballer.
Okay, sorry.
So like,
Career's
what's it worth
done.
to you to have your public image defamed?
Well, it depends what I'm doing after footy. If like I'm doing stuff.
That's not really. What do you want to do after football? Because once you do the OnlyFans, that's not going to happen
Well,
if it's
okay.
in public space
Let me rephrase the
Okay.
answer. So if I'm doing nothing.
because of it.
No. Before, like after footy's done, I'm on Centrelink. I've got nothing going for me at all. Then I'm doing OnlyFans, yes. But if I've got shit going on and I don't know, I'm a famous podcaster like I am now, then
And professional Derek.
Do you reckon
Yeah.
there's any dude that's ever got a chick by saying and like I'm a famous podcaster?
well, didn't you do that with
Yeah.
your missus?
I'd do a
What
lot
do you do
more
for
than that
yourself?
to get her. A lot
Yeah.
more than that to
What do you
get
do for
her.
yourself? Funny enough, I'm
Oh,
actually
it's funny
top
you say that.
3,000 podcasters. I don't want to brag or anything, but I've just started.
It's because like podcasting's not sexy.
Nah, not yet.
Like if you said,
Well, we're trying.
That's
I
why we're dressed
honestly,
up a little bit.
I'm going to go as far to say is banking is sexier than podcasting. Like if you went up to a chick and said, I'm in banking, I work at CBA or whatever, that's sexier than I'm podcasting.
Yeah, because they also see the dollar signs that are associated with the banking world. So, like, we could dress up the figures, Not sure how. Well, yeah. Talk about revenue, which was...
How much we're getting revenue for our
in the
podcast.
negative.
Yeah.
No, it's a growth industry. Look, we're taking a chance,
It's a lost leader.
Yeah.
That's what they call it, a lost leader.
Yeah, but you have that what's it called? The bank now to be like, you're your second podcast in Australia. So now you can throw out some figures. I'm guessing the bankers will be
Look,
very jealous of the income that bloke in the bar, the whole company is creating.
still just a battling startup, mate.
Just an Aussie battler.
Just a battler out from Mudgera on the Goldie, just doing me best, and I look up sometimes and I'm blinded by the lights. Seriously.
Yeah, let's get into the battler. Where did the battler start out? Your story. Where did Denan Kemp come from? What's going on in your world, mate?
Well, come from my dad's balls.
Yeah, did you?
Same.
Really?
Well, I didn't meet him, but yeah.
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 Well, okay. Now we're in
I'm sure he's a great guy.
Okay. Moving on.
Yeah. So it's good to see you wearing wasted on the chest, man. It's good to see you hit.
Wasted on the That's some risque material. I like that.
wish,
I'm from Gold Coast, Mudgera.
Yep.
Born and raised
Shout
Mudgera, and yeah, just grew up. I grew up like basically the internet. Come out late 1990s, so. It would have been, I think it's 94 when it came out, but when it was like accessible to the public, I think it's around like 98 maybe a little bit earlier, I'm not sure. And ever since then, like my day or week consisted of like sport, computer. So like in regards to playing video games and sport.
Were you Age of Empires, man?
Loved Age of Empires.
How good was Age of Empires?
Bro. Especially number 2. And just the amount of hours. I used to go to my friend's house because we couldn't afford a computer that like played Age of Empires, and it's so funny, like back in the day when your friends you thought were really rich, they weren't, they were just comfortable, you were just poor.
Yeah.
Well, not poor, but like
you just weren't as comfortable?
Yeah.
Less comfortable.
Less comfortable.
Yeah.
But yeah, I used to go to his house and he had a good PC, and I honestly would sit there for like 8 hours a day watching him play, and that would like
that would stimulate you enough.
and I would love it enough. Like I'd be like, this is worth it. This is totally worth
this
it.
guy's he's made it.
Yeah, wow.
This is living.
I used to be he was like my best mate. I'd be so jealous of like all the like the nice house. You'd always have the new computer, and you're like, when you look back on it now, you're like, you know what? I actually don't mind that I have to battle a little bit.
100%.
It creates, the version of you are today. Makes you appreciate it. Chase those, maybe chase a bit harder or push a bit more.
So you were a full like computer nerd growing up, is the same.
Mate,
you had no friends
at one point. Well, that's still the same.
But now you're the top looking down. Before you were looking up.
Well, now I can be arrogant to people. Whereas like before I had to pretend to be nice to like get what I wanted, like a true sociopath.
Like completely expedient relationships.
And then
clawing your way to the top, and now you just kick
always treating people below me poorly, and treating people above me well. Yeah. Now I can
just like the Sydney lifestyle, pretty much.
Pretty much how everyone in Sydney rolls around.
Yeah.
Mate, that is honestly one of my pet hates. So how much does it sting you when you've got either a friend or whatever, and you've never seen it before, and you see them talk to someone that's like clearly, in air quotations, beneath them, like shit.
Rude.
It is disgusting. Like it makes me furious.
When you see players or people like treat like, not saying they're beneath or below, like waitress, like service staff, doing the job, just serving people, like, like the old rude, come get this, no eye contact, like
I've seen you before a couple of times getting dinner with you and you click people. I've seen that a couple of times.
I can see you as a clicker.
Don't make up
I can see you as a clicker. And you know what else? I can see you as like an arrogant to the fringies that are coming through.
You know what?
You're not me. You're not me. Don't tackle me. Mate, don't touch me.
I loathe that. I have categorically deny that.
That's not true at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, I don't know. I treat everyone with respect, and I'm me with everyone.
That's not what I've heard. I've heard you're the most disrespectful bloke in the
game. I've heard you're in bed with the mole and Danny Whitelaw. So that's why we're going to be a bit, put up a bit of shop here, a bit of a front, a bit of a shield. I'm not going to give up too much information because I don't want to go into the wrong sources. But like, if you want to talk on rumours, you know what? Like, that's why you don't believe rumours. You don't trade in rumours. So like, I know deep down you're a nice guy, so I expect that rumour to be quashed. And
quash it.
That's how you start to rise in the ranks. I heard, selling rumours, get information, all this, But I don't believe it. I don't believe what you hear.
I appreciate that you don't believe it,
yeah,
but I was into computers.
I know for a fact Toby throws money on the ground for the waitresses to pick up as a tip.
Yeah, well, they should get it. Anyway, so computer nerd into football, as in soccer nerd, growing up.
Yeah, so basically, also athletic nerd. Whatever I did, I was a nerd.
You're a nerd.
I had no respect,
nerd.
wasn't cool.
Yeah.
Basically, initially it was soccer and athletics. So I had gone to like state for running and all that kind of stuff, nationals.
246A, is it?
Yeah, well, actually, one year I won the 100, 200, 400, 800 cross country for Queensland.
Heavy brag, yep.
Massive.
Well done, man.
It's not a humble brag. Like, I'm just going to brag.
We're just throwing your dick around in the change rooms like, fucking get behind me because you're
There's
always
not much
there.
to throw around, I'll be honest. There's not much.
Big first, dick second.
Well, you know what's actually funny? They did a study, and you know the idea that if you've got big feet and hands, you have... I didn't even finish it. I didn't even need to finish it because you know what I was going to say.
Yeah.
They did a study, and they actually said the only body part that increases the likelihood of a large,
penis,
is the beak. It's not the feet. It's not the hands. Now, obviously, the stat's wrong for me. I fall in the minority.
Unfortunately, you didn't fall into that.
You're the outlier.
Yeah.
I'm the outlier. And so that hurts. It's traumatic, but I do celebrate for my fellow beaks out there.
From that outline, maybe that was what pushed into the outline sense of, Rugby League podcasts and the success that followed that. Maybe, you never know.
The trauma pushed me towards that.
The
greatness.
Small dick, big beak, like you were.
Small dick.
Jesus Christ.
That should be your new, not bloke in a bar, small dick, big beak.
Beer.
Yeah.
Beer.
But yeah, so. Can we prove it? Like, we can prove it if you want.
Trust me, it's something you don't need to see to know.
We'll show off camera.
Yeah.
I've seen it off camera anyway. So 18 years old, obviously soccer nerd, athletic nerd, computer nerd.
Hadn't played rugby league up to this point.
Hadn't played rugby league.
No, so basically what happened was I'd mucked around. When I was in grade 6, I played with my school a few games and then got selected for South Coast and went to state. And then they were basically all the like parents there or whatever trying to get me to their club like Narang and Rabina, like Mudgeeraba Redbacks, I think they were called at the time. But I was like, no, like I'm a soccer player. So I played that there. And actually, funnily enough, in that same team was Darius Boyd. Because we're from the same area, me and Darius Mudgeeraba. Anyway, so basically played a few games in year 6, then stopped and then was focused on soccer. And then basically from there on till year 12 was when I decided, all my mates wanted to play rugby league. You get time off school, a thing called confraternity. One of my mates actually is like a #1 Broncos fan. I'm talking seriously knows everything about rugby league, knows everything about the Broncos. And he's also used to, like, we were friends all the way from year 1 to 12, but like we would constantly have punch-ons. So like every few years...
Who'd win?
Well, I mean, one's a professional athlete, one's not.
Yeah. One's a Broncos fan, one's actually doing it.
No.
One's on the couch, one's on the field.
No, it wasn't punch-ons like that in regards. Like, we're so young that like...
So bitch slaps.
wrestles.
Just bitch slaps.
Yeah.
Knee
like,
wrestles.
Just nothing going on. Handbags being thrown.
Who can get the first finger in the, who can get the finger in the bum first?
We'll allow it.
Okay.
I'll allow it. Handbags being thrown.
Oh, yeah, sweet.
Men can have handbag. I have a handbag.
There you go. Boom.
Yeah,
There you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Anyway, so he sat me down before we were about to go. So year 11, they wanted me to go away because grade 1 to 12, this group of friends, we'd all stayed together. So they'd obviously seen all the stuff that I'd done athletics and all the times that we'd done HPE and that together. They could see, athletically I was okay. And so year 11, they tried to get me to go play confraternity for their year 12 team. And I lied and said that I was away on like a soccer trip or something. Yeah. Anyway, it was actually on the Gold Coast, and they drove past to the grounds and caught me with my girlfriend at the time going to get some ice cream. So I got caught in the lie.
No,
that's a hard one to take.
So the next one came around, but this was with my grade, with my years. So like the players that are my mates.
Yeah.
And so basically what happened was I was umming and ahhing. I had nationals for soccer. I think it was about 2 weeks after confraternity, and I was like, I don't know, I can't afford it for one, and I've got nationals for soccer in 2 weeks because that's where like all the money has gone to pay for me to go to that. So the school, as I said, had seen me athletically do what I did. So the school raised money to help me go. And on top of that, so that's St. Michael's. Always be grateful to St. Michael's for that.
Sick,
that's mad.
Yeah. And so that Broncos fan, though, we're sitting around at lunch. This is no GST. Like, this is no word of a lie.
That Broncos fan, so he has beneath you now. So when you moved on, he's now not your mate anymore. That Broncos fan. Anyway,
the Broncos fan.
Yeah, the Broncos fan.
fan.
Your friend.
That ex-mate of yours is not good enough to be mates anymore.
So he's basically, we're all sitting in a table and he goes, mate, I promise you, if you go away to confraternity, you will be scouted by the Broncos or an NRL club. That's no GST at all.
Yeah.
So much so that everyone else around the table was like, listen, man, like, you're good with us, but compared to guys like, Steve Michaels, Darius Boyd, the guys that are at Palm Beach, Currumbin, Kira, when you play against them, they're a totally different level. And it's fair. Like, they probably were. They're way bigger. I'd never even played footy. Anyway, so I was like, you know what? I'll go. First game we get up there, played relatively well. We're in the B comp, by the way. We're not a rugby league school. Like, this is, our front row is 80 kilos. Like, terrible. Anyway, so get up there first. After the first game, scored a few tries. The coach comes up to me and goes, oh, would you, if someone was interested, would you consider, rugby league? And at the time, I didn't know what was happening. And I was like, nah, not really. And so scored all these tries in the B grade, won an award, player with the most potential. Broncos, Ivan Henjak was the guy, pulled me aside. He said, listen, and this was a time where you couldn't speak to other clubs at all if you were contracted with, a club. And he was like, listen, if you're with another club, I'm sorry, mate, but we'd love you to come to our, a camp, not the elite camp, but the camp underneath it for like development players that may be something.
Yeah.
Long story short, I ignored it. So because I was crook on the last day of confraternity. So I got home, let it go for a few weeks, went to nationals for soccer, come back, and then I told my parents, oh, by the way, Broncos have given me this award. They want me to go to this camp. And my dad was like, we don't know what even that is. So he called Broncos, got through to Wayne Bennett somehow, and was like, my son plays soccer. He doesn't know what camps are this or that. He has got no club footy, whatever. And so when they found about that, they're like, oh, we want him to come to our elite camp, which was way earlier than the probables camps, which was like at the end of the year. Anyway, went to that camp, seemed to impress. They offered me a contract with the under-19s Broncos side. in the meanwhile of all this, AFL found out of a kid that could play multiple sports. They tried to get Brisbane Lions, sat me down, said they trained me personally to get me to the draft.
Crazy, yeah.
Man
And
to
then
man.
Well, athletically, I was okay. It was pure, like, wasn't that they'd seen anything anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah, I chose rugby league because obviously it's the Brisbane Broncos. At that time, they were the biggest sporting brand in the country. I'm not sure if they still are, but at that time, they were bigger than any AFL. Like they're massive. They're bigger than any NRL.
They're
Yeah,
still, like,
huge.
top 2 or 3 biggest brands.
And also, I had a really good only one memory with my dad. Literally, only one memory, and it was sitting at the knee of a chair like this of him watching the Broncos and Steve Renouf play. And he's a mad Broncos fan. My dad was, whereas my father, he was an AFL fan, so he wanted me to go AFL. But my grandfather was a mad leaguey, but he actually passed away before I debuted. But yeah, and then I just went, you know what? And at this stage as well, my brother was over in England playing soccer, and he was got offered a contract with Norwich. So the plan was for me to go over to England for soccer and just follow him. Norwich is, I think they may be in the Premier League. If not, they're just underneath at the moment. But then he came home because he got homesick, and so basically I was like, well, if my brother's not over there, I don't want to go over there. Like, I want to be with... If he's got homesick, I'll get homesick.
Made the choice
and so that
easier.
made the choice easier than going
That's
in.
a crazy turn of events.
Is it safe to say that you were like the Joseph Suaalii of the
Soccer?
past? Yeah, well, I mean, you had all these, like, I think even the Ponga had like offers from everywhere. So you pretty much... You paved the way for Kalen Ponga and Suaalii.
They said thank you, yeah?
Can I get some money? Can I get some cash? I didn't get $1 million out of school.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
But it is interesting because, like, the A-League... So I was with Queensland Raw. They're in the A-League now for soccer. And the A-League, if it had have gone... It's gone... It's died down a bit. But if it had gone in the direction that they probably could go, I may have been
projected. They were projected big things.
Yeah, big things. And it just never seemed to click. I don't know what it is. Like, Australia just doesn't seem to get behind. You know what I think it is with the A-League in Australia is, like, with AFL and Rugby League, you've got the best product of Rugby League and AFL in Australia.
Yeah.
Whereas with soccer, why would I watch A-League when I can watch the Premier
NBL,
League?
of course.
Same with the
Bundesliga?
NBL, hey.
Yeah.
Everyone's so all in for the NBA, and they watch NBL. It's obviously not as good because the money's nowhere near it. The product's not the same. They're like, this is shit. When in actual fact, it's not. It's good quality, but it's just nowhere near the quality that we can
You're just going to, like, in England, so when
Spoiled.
we went over to England for soccer when I was 15, when we played under 16, so I played under 16s, Man United, Leeds United, Scotland, and they literally, their kids from like 8 years old, 9 years old, they integrate soccer with their schooling. So they'll wake up, go to training for Man United or whatever at like 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning, train. They'll go to school. Then during the middle of the day, they'll train. They'll go back. Then they'll train after school.
The 10-year-old kids.
Like young
3
as
times a
anything,
day.
real young.
I've heard they got the academies that start, 8 years old.
It's
If you don't
real
get- if
young.
you don't get in the academy at a young age, like sort of, it's really
almost
hard.
over.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
if you don't get in at like 8, 9, 10, it's like,
Before he's 10 years old.
you keep playing, brother, but no. Yeah.
Mate, it's seriously like cutthroat. And so when we played Man United 16s, we they were so much more skilled than us, but we were just way more aggressive.
Yeah.
And it just had more ticker than them. Now, obviously, and also like to us, it's the biggest game of our lives. Whereas Man United are like, who are these randos from Australia coming across playing us? I don't care. But yeah, and then started playing rugby league at 2005.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I went from there.
And then you played for what? You went from the Broncos to the Warriors to the Dragons?
Broncos to the Warriors, Warriors back to Broncos, Broncos to Union Sevens, Sevens to the Dragons.
Did you have a little stint in the Sevens?
Yep, quit footy. Broncos call me back up to Broncos.
Oh, 3
quit
stints
footy
to
again.
Broncos.
Yeah.
Wow.
Couldn't
Yeah.
get enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they brushed me a few times, so I don't know why they kept calling me back.
Yeah, it was like the
They must have
ex-girlfriend you
missed-
want, like, oh, maybe there's another chance. We can work this out. You keep just crawling back.
They missed the beak. That's what they missed.
Clearly.
They just didn't have a beak in the squad.
What was that like for you, sort of bouncing around from club to club over that period of your career?
To be honest, it now, like, when it all ended, it's almost like you're almost a bit ashamed because you had all this talent and you should have been a 10-year player. But because of certain things, whether it was like luck with coaches, whether your own actions off the field, I think as well, because I had my brothers don't play rugby league, my dad doesn't watch rugby league or play rugby league, I had no one to like kind of guide me and say, for example, any young guy at the Broncos, even if they tell that you're third in line as a winger, if you've been playing rugby league for 2 years, you should not be going to New Zealand to play rugby league. Like, that's insanity. You barely know the game. It's a totally different country, and you're just going to go over there and think that you're going to kill it. And so I just didn't get the right advice from people that knew better.
Yeah.
In saying that, like, when I went over there, like, my own actions off the field absolutely didn't help me. I had a terrible relationship, like an abusive relationship in regards to I got abused by a chick.
Right.
And so that was just like, it was just hell. It was just hell. Like, in regards to off-field, New Zealand as a club, the Warriors as a club, is incredible. Really family orientated. But yeah, so like, when looking back on it, you're disappointed in yourself that you didn't deliver there on the talent that you had, whereas like a lot of other people would kill to have that talent. But I wouldn't be here right now.
See, yeah, hindsight's obviously pretty beautiful, but you obviously learn a few lessons and it pushed you forward.
We'll put it this way: if someone said, "All right, Denan, you can play 200 NRL games, but you won't be where I am right now," there's no way I would add another 150 games to my career to not be sacrifice this, if you know what I'm saying.
It's crazy how things work out, like small things, maybe not so small, but like just little movements of your clubs and where you're going can change your future so much.
I try to say that to people listening to the podcast all the time. Like, yes, at the end of the day, it's always the player's responsibility, and most players that aren't sooks will admit that. They'll be like, I did this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. But people forget that, like, if one coach changes and he just doesn't seem to rate you as a player, even though you're killing it in New South Wales Cup, Queensland Cup, it can derail your whole career. I mean, look at Cody Walker. Does his hammy at Storm, misses out on selection, then he waits 2 to 3 years at the Rabbitohs and doesn't debut till 26.
And hasn't missed a game since.
It's unbelievable.
A couple of those players, they come out of Canberra, like
Damien Cook.
Paul Vaughan out of Canberra, left Canberra, killed it, whatever it was. Damien Cook.
Asako. I'm telling you right now, if Dolphins didn't come to the comp, Asako probably wouldn't be playing footy.
He even openly admitted he was like on the outer. Hey, he wanted to.
He couldn't get a contract.
Yeah. And now he's one of the best, like one of the most informed wingers in the comp. It's crazy,
killing it. And so I try to say that to people, like, it's like anything, any normal job. Some workplaces you excel in, and some workplaces you don't, and it's the same with players.
A bit of a change of environment, change of coach. It's crazy how much.
And just belief.
Yeah.
Like,
I think I experienced that a bit when I came to South. You know?
Yeah.
I probably had a bit more. I expected more myself, and I had this career path that I was going to be this and this, and obviously made the wrong choice off the field and did myself no favours, changed clubs, and I was in trouble. And then I got to South, and Wayne believed in me, and a couple of players, and I just went like, stop fucking around. Like,
yeah.
Had that belief, like that genuine belief, and you can feel it, and it's like, man, it's time to grow up. And
man, I think I'm not sure like what coaching is like today, but when I was coming through, I just found it surprising that how many coaches weren't willing just to have an honest conversation and just be like Wayne was really good at it. You know, Ivan Henjak, for me personally, I know he didn't do too well with the senior players, but so many players, if the coach is just honest with you. For example, if a coach sat me down and said, you're going really well, but I just don't rate you as a winger, like you're a small winger, I want a big winger, I'll be like, sweet. Okay, like let me try to work out a way where either I can go to a club that does want that, or like I'll increase my carries and try to get the 200 metres that you want a game. But I'm not sure what your guys' experience has been, but there are a lot of coaches that they're not honest with you. They just don't tell you anything.
They don't want to have that confrontational conversation.
It's
or
bizarre.
They dance around it, play games or whatever. We're like, I think I'm lucky at South. We have Wayne and JD. JD's pretty honest up front, and you can have the conversation. I think it seems like on the outside looking in, Fitzy's pretty up front.
Oh, mate, Fitzy's, he's gone. He knows how to deliver bad news. I've received it from him before, and he's unreal. I feel like, you always hear about Wayne being that people manager. I really do feel like Fitzy sort of got that down pat as well. Very much people orientated person.
But have you experienced that as well? Like coaches that in
the past,
they'll drop you and they won't even tell you what you need to work on.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the hell?
What's going on?
Yeah, 100%. I was going to ask you as well. Now, that was weird.
like I was in the wrong place.
No. What am I doing here?
Looking for the toilet.
It's
Toby's face.
So, when did the podcast start? What year did you start?
Why?
Yeah, and why? And why's the question as well?
What's going on?
Actually, I do know the why, but I want you to tell me why.
The why? Well, basically, I'd quit footy.
What age was this, sorry, by the way?
About 26, 27.
We'll get back to that, but what happened?
Yeah. Well, in regards to quitting footy, I was just like so disillusioned with it all, and I had to ask myself, a lot of information had come out about CT and all of that kind of.
Oh, right.
This is on the start of it.
Yeah.
And so I've got to sit there and go, okay, you're 25, 26 years old. You're a small winger. You're not a big winger. You'll never be on a big contract. Very few wingers are on big contracts.
Especially back then.
Back then, like you look 50 grand, like 50, 60 grand, which is, it's great if you're going to earn that for the rest of your life, but like not for a couple of years. Yeah. And I was like, and I had to ask myself, like, what's the difference between me playing 40 NRL games and me playing 70 NRL games? It's all ego. Like, to be able to say, like, who is going to look at me and say, oh, no, you're not an NRL player because you didn't play 70 NRL games? Like, no one is. It's only my own ego. Yeah. But the difference is, negatively, my body's more bashed up and I've spent more years not, I guess, becoming, like, building up my resume after rugby league. And so mix that in with feeling disillusioned, feeling like, certain things didn't go my way. I was just like, I'm done. Like, what's the point of this? Just getting bashed for nothing.
And then you went into the mines, if I'm not correct.
So basically, I quit footy and I basically just went and got a mature age apprenticeship because I didn't want to do it. I wasn't passionate about it at all, but it was more just like, as a man, you got to go and get a job and
find out what you want to do the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly. And also start building so that when you do have a family, at least you've got a good foundation for that family. But yeah, basically every day I'd wake up and I just hated it. Like 4:30 in the morning, getting into bed going, there's not a single second of this day that I enjoy. Like,
I know that feeling very well.
It's literally.
On job sites, mate. I've done labour and like.
Oh yeah.
And the difference.
6 weeks.
No, a bit more.
And the difference between, I think, physical labour or working on job sites, at least on the big ones. There's no like, oh, I'm just going to chill for 20 minutes and like talk to whatever about this. Whereas in an office job, the amount of times you see people like they'll send a few emails and then they'll sit there having a yarn for whatever. Nah, on a work site, your phones aren't allowed out for one, and you are working the whole time, which is fine. I don't mind that, but you've got to love what you do if you're working the whole time. For example, if I do 4 podcasts a day, I'm not going to be like, oh, this is torture. Like I love it. I love what I do. So. So I was doing that,
and you're not ripping in. You're just sort of sitting down talking shit.
You're just talking. It's like a joke of a job. It's not even a job. I don't describe what I do as a job. I'm just the luckiest dude ever. And so I was going to the mines, and I was listening to a lot of Joe Rogan experiences. Would have been 2013, 14. Okay. And what I would do is it was really cold, so I would wear a beanie underneath my hard hat and have wireless headphones on.
Nice.
So I would just work all day, just smashing through Joe Rogan.
Yeah, nice.
And I was like, man, you know what? Like, I wouldn't mind doing this. This would be cool. And so initially I was like, maybe I should give it a shot because if it works, great. If not, at least I get some creative outlet, like some feeling of accomplishment. Whereas like right now, I just feel like I'm in a meat grinder. And then I was like, well, what I'll do is, because I've always been interested in people's stories, like whether it's anyone you meet, like there is just 1,000 branching stories from them and who they know. Every emotion, everything that's ever gone on in your life, every huge event, everyone has that. Of
course.
Everyone has that.
Everyone's got a story.
Everyone's got a story. Yeah. And some people, like sometimes I think people forget that. Like they think that they're the only ones that have crazy shit happen to them.
They're caught up in their own world, their own issues that no one else understands.
Yeah.
There's fucking like billion other people.
100%. So basically, I was like, okay, I'm going to interview people. And then I was like, well, then I've got to compete against every podcast in the world that does that. Joe Rogan already does it. There's all these other podcasts that do it. It's like, what's my point of difference? Well, rugby league. No one's doing it in rugby league. No one's interviewing people in rugby league. That's my point of difference. Also, I've spent my whole life earning the right to say I was an NRL player. That's valuable. And building the connections of knowing NRL players. And so I went out, got all the stuff put it on credit card. And
what did you get? A couple microphones, computer, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, a couple of microphones. Initially, I used like 2 webcams.
Good quality, high quality HD.
Oh my god, it's so blurry.
Yeah.
And so it was Bo Ryan was my first one, but yeah, I had 2 webcams like plugged into 2 laptops recording.
Yeah.
And I went out and bought, like as I said, the media pop-up walls that go behind the guest.
Yep.
The reason why I did that was because I know NRL players. They're lazy. They're not going anywhere to do anything. So I wanted to make it as frictionless as possible to get guests on.
Did you go to them?
Well, if they wanted to, like I'd hire a hotel near where they lived. Or
really?
Sometimes I'd go to their lounge room, I'd set it all up and interview them. And so what the beauty of that was is that people watching thought that they were coming to a studio, but in reality, I was going to them, making it as frictionless as possible to get guests on. And so, yes, and I just told myself, I'm going to give this 2 years, work full time, do this on the side. If it works, if my dreams are achieved, how good? If not, at the very least, I'll have, let's say I had 1,000 people listening in a week. That's 1,000 people I can advertise a Sparky business to, like if I'm a domestic Sparky.
At least you know you had a crack. You know, you're not sitting there wondering. And
100%. So, yeah, I did it for a bit, had some, legends. Like, for example, like Anthony Mundine, I think he came on my podcast. Like, we'd never met, barely spoken. I messaged him on Facebook. Yeah. He came on the podcast. I might have been like 10 episodes in.
No way.
This is 2015 or 16. Like, we're talking ages ago.
Yeah,
he was like, yep, sweet. And that's why, like, I understand Chock is very controversial and you can disagree with some opinions he has on certain things. But for a superstar of his stature, to get a random message on Facebook, rock up to a Cronulla hotel for a podcast, no one knows what podcast is, and give me his time, like, I'll always be grateful for that.
Shout out to Chock Minds.
Mate, I've actually heard he's actually assaulted a human being.
I've heard that from everyone.
Yeah, he just personifies this like bad image so people buy fights.
Yeah, he's like the Aussie Conor McGregor. He's controversial. People I love him, I hate him. He's polarizing, and he benefited from it.
Mate. Yeah. And so his episode went absolutely bonkers. Like, was all over the news because he said, bruh, I was like Thurston, but with twin turbos.
I remember that. That was in yours.
That was my podcast.
Pretty good guy to get on your podcast. You know something's going to come out. Someone's going to disagree with you.
But you know what's insane? A lot of people were shocked by what he said. Yeah. If you go back and look at Anthony Mundine's early career, he was a weapon. Yeah, a weapon. Anyway, so that went good. Freddie Fittler come on the podcast quite early on. Yeah, right. Another guy that just I don't even know how I got onto him. I can't even remember, but this was when podcasts were just starting, so I'll always be grateful for Freddie. Like, again, a legend of our game, some random 40 game no-namer. And this was like years after I'd quit, so
out of the game for a while.
For a while,
Let's
so he come on
random messages out to people we don't think we can get.
Mike Tyson,
mate,
you would be surprised. Yeah, that's all I did. That's all I did.
That's mad.
I wish you had to do a Lipa, see if she's keen.
Yeah, I reckon she would be.
Yeah. I reckon she would be.
South fan?
I think she's a Sharks fan. Anyway, go on, Denan. Okay, cool.
Oh, she was a Bronx fan.
Is that what you heard? Well, you guys all heard wrong because you love Sharks and Toby Rudolf, so whatever.
Yeah. One of those. Anyway.
Shut up. Yes.
So basically, then long story short, sponsor called Moneyball come on board.
Yeah.
And I still remember to this day, they offered me like a 3-month deal. At this stage, like, I'd never done a contract before. I didn't know anything about business. And so I was like, this is it. I'm doing it. I still remember walking up. It's in this area, actually, just around the corner, walking up this hill, sunny day, trees, just signed the deal for 3 months and going, I'm quitting. Like, I'm quitting. I was in my 3rd year of my apprenticeship, just got through the hardest year of electrical, which is like electrical apprenticeship, which is the 2nd year. And everyone's like, no, just finish it just in case. And I was like, nah, no way. Like, first of all, like, I'm an all-in kind of guy. Like,
I think that's always going to happen, when someone like yourself, you want to change something, you want to chase something you love, or your mates or people there, like, mate, don't do it. Just be careful. Everyone wants to say the best advice, and like, it's probably the hardest thing. Someone like you in that position to I want to do it.
Yeah.
What? How do you get through that? Like,
well,
just self-belief.
The way I always see it is, first of all, people try to conflate that with, like, when someone says, "Oh no, finish it," they go, "Oh, he's a hater." No, he's not a hater. He wants the best for you.
He's giving his best advice.
Exactly. It's the safest advice. But the way I see it, and like, this sounds a bit pretentious. I'm wearing a turtleneck, so maybe it works. But I've always felt like, if you want to live a normal life, or if you're trying to be different, why would you listen to conventional wisdom? Yeah. Like, common sense is going to make you live a common life, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's actually a lot of peace in that.
Yeah.
But if you're going to take advice from everyone, then, like, there are periods where I think there's 2 different things. There's wisdom and there is advice. Like, wisdom is a guy that's been there, done it, has seen it, or a girl has seen it, where sometimes people give advice. They're just repeating what they've been told by a movie, by their friends. Do they really know what they're talking about?
Projecting their feelings towards it's just...
Well, their own limitations.
Yeah.
I remember, this is while I was a little bit in, and I remember he was quite high up in media, and I had a meeting with him and another guy. They'd set it up. Sorry? Yeah, I think his name was Danny or something like that. Yeah. And I remember basically I said, look, I'd love to be like, my goal is for it to be like an online media network, like Fox, like Nine. He literally laughed in my face. Like, literally laughed in my face. Yeah.
Wow, Danny Wilder laughed in your face. It's so rude.
Yeah, so
rude. Why do you
rude.
still give him information if he laughs in your face?
I don't know why we're such good mates still.
Yeah, like, maybe it's that connection. Anyway.
And so,
Can't fight love.
but that idea, like, yeah, okay, it sounds absurd, like to be these huge media conglomerates. It sounds absurd, but that guy was just laughing at himself, really, his own limitations,
Yeah.
like things.
Insecurities,
His
yes.
own, like, look at Barstool TV in America, same situation to a degree. Like they're not as big as ESPN, but they're considered like a media massive giant. Of
course.
Anyway, so the way I see this is like, if you want to live an uncommon life, you've got to be willing to do uncommon things. I say that.
Love that mindset, eh?
Yeah.
I say it to my wife as well. Like, you know, in regards to sacrifices, like, if we want to live a life that most people don't live, we've got to be willing to to make sacrifices that most people wouldn't be willing to make. And that's what I think about. Now, don't confuse that with arrogant pig-headedness of just like, oh yeah, I'm a hero. You know,
Disillusioned.
yeah, disillusioned.
Light-mindedness.
Yeah, there's a lot of nonsense like entrepreneur videos out there of like, yeah, you can be anything. Like, no, you actually can't be anything.
Cultivate your own world. Man.
Yeah, it's like, no, you can be smart about it, plan it, look at the pros, look at the cons, how much is it going to cost you, what's the time cost, like there's so many different things. Like for me personally, when I looked at it, I was like, okay, I'm in my 3rd year of apprenticeship, I go out and I try this for a couple of years. If it works, I can always just come back and finish the apprenticeship. Like, what have I really lost other than a couple of years? Like, in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing in your life. And I guess that's what you got to ask yourself. Like, what are you really losing by having a crack at whatever it is? But also, you've got to be honest with yourself. Like, if you've been doing it, if I did the locker room for 2 to 3 years and no one was interested, I would have to say, look, this is just not my thing. This is not my thing. I'm destined for something else. So that's the way I look at it anyway.
Yeah, wow.
Deep thinking for a 27 or 28-year-old.
Yeah, well,
awesome.
I am a nerd.
Yeah. Lots
Start
of
off
thinking.
nerdy, so man,
Lots of
maybe.
thinking going on there.
Yeah.
Lots of thinking. Sometimes bad thinking.
Sometimes. I was actually a nerd in high school. I was referred to as Dorkosaurus.
Dorkosaurus.
Yeah, in my early years. Yeah, I was.
I've seen photos.
Yeah.
We'll get some of them out there.
Yeah.
For people listening, we will paint a picture. He was not this macho man that he pretends to be today. This is all a front. This is all a front to hide the pain.
Surprising.
From,
we got off the plane. We got off the plane in Adelaide, and we had a beautiful woman come up to him and say, "You are gorgeous." That literally happened.
That did happen, yeah.
Wow, what happened with that?
Denan got scared and pulled herself into the taxi rank because she was walking to the Uber rank. He's like, "Bro, let's go." Now, when he says beautiful, gorgeous woman, he may be over-exaggerating a touch.
And she may have been inebriated.
Adelaide 9, Sydney 5.
I'm going to say just a general 1.
I'm not measuring women by points, guys. I'm a new age man.
Yeah. You
wouldn't want to do that.
You do seem to be very scared of making these mistakes. With like, can we say handbags? So look, it's okay.
He's in the media now. He's got to be careful with what he puts out.
And
there.
this is the biggest media conglomerate, biggest podcast in Australia. Yeah. That is
shout
also
out
true.
to our millions of fans. We love each of you.
You're a new age man.
I'm a new age man.
That was a weird experience.
That was very strange.
That was so weird.
It was herself and a guy. Both of them were drunk.
Both came?
We weren't sure if they were together, were we?
Well, they were walking together.
They were walking together.
So you were getting dragged into a swinger situation and you let that go.
Mate, that's what I said to you.
No, I pulled him away. I was like, let's go to get it cool because we were all going to get an Uber. And she's like, what are you doing tonight? Let's go out.
Catch up. Yeah,
Your beak isn't that big. You're hot. What are you laughing for? She said that.
No, I know. It's true. It's funny.
It sounds funny. It must sound funny hearing it
bro.
again.
You laughed way too hard at that.
Bro, I like true humour. It was funny.
He forgot about it and obviously triggered that emotional response.
Yeah.
Sorry, can't all be hot, bro. Jeez,
bro, me and you are hot. We had a chick in Adelaide look at both of us and go, "Yeah, I want a piece of that." So we
jump
are
into
hot.
our swinger situation.
Yeah, but that was
Come
so
and get
weird.
That was so
slippery.
weird.
That was so.
That was our
weird.
introduction to Adelaide.
Yeah, never
It's not a bad start. A bit of pump the chest up a little bit, getting the Uber like this a little
they
bit.
were quite inebriated. And what I didn't get is like, why were they had bags like as literally bags going on holidays.
Yeah.
So they got off a plane.
And also her teeth were black.
Yes.
That was
is true.
really scary.
Do you reckon they just
yeah.
ate, do you reckon they just ate some sort of stew or not? They had
Mate,
they
I know
hadn't
if it was
brushed.
like red wine.
Maybe she was teeth whitening. Charcoal.
Maybe she was eating shit.
That's also very possible.
You never know.
Yeah, that's very possible.
And the dude with her was also rough as guts. So
I thought that like she just sort of come into this circle and he was just sort of entertaining.
no,
her.
he was with her.
Okay.
He was with her, and he was drunk as anything too, and
Well,
rough
look,
too.
Adelaide guy, Adelaide girl. If you listen to this podcast, we'd love to hear from you. And
Sounds like you guys missed out on a wacky afternoon.
well, that's what I was sort of saying to Denan, but was interested.
He's obviously taken. You're obviously scared.
Not
so
scared. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're as hot as me, you're taken already.
yeah, obviously the
Taking a
good ones. The
while.
good ones are taken much.
Yeah.
You know, much faster.
Yeah,
I'm
of
trying to
course.
say it made no sense, but
That's all right.
Dyslexic fit.
That's all right. During the podcast, during the times, was Anthony Mundine was it the sort of the first time when you were like, I got something here, or was it a certain podcast? Was it a certain point in time, or was it just a slow burn?
Up
of
and
just
down. What was it?
consistency sort of thing?
Oh man,
What was the
it's-
hardest period for you?
I try to the hardest period. Oh man, the hardest period was when. So basically, so there came a time where I had a sponsor, and that sponsor changed hands and changed people, and then all of a sudden they were like, "Nah, not interested in fulfilling this contract
Same
or
as the
whatever."
coach before.
And they basically we had a contract there for them to pay sponsorship, and they just stopped.
Oh wow!
And so, anyway, that was really tough times because it's like, oh man, like I'm probably gonna have to go back and then I also was trying to run a bar for my brother, and that was tough because we're trying to turn things around. I'd just come in to help with that, but that was a really tough. But the thing is, I never wavered in my regards to. I always knew that podcasting was a future, and I always knew that if you just stuck at it, that eventually it'll become mainstream. And I don't even think it's mainstream yet. Like,
You know,
Still
reckon?
got- I
no,
think it's still
people think it is, but there's a large, like a huge, quiet majority that still, like for example, media spend is still like 85 to 90% on radio and TV.
Yeah,
When
okay.
media spend changes, is he in the game?
He's not now game. He's just been fired actually. So
Okay.
Speak up. You're raising your hand.
The
Well,
reason why all of that spend is being done is because they have the biggest sales force.
Yeah.
So if there's a podcast sales force, then you'll see that money move in a podcast.
Yeah, and I think as well the people that run the big media agencies have close relationships with the people of the mainstream.
huge networks.
So there is this idea of like the mainstream media is trying to protect the monopoly to a degree.
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. Anyway,
Yeah.
You're starting to see a shift though, because some of that mainstream media is just propaganda and hate
Well-
and like fear mongering. Like it's just.
I'll tell you one thing as well. There is no kid these days watching TV anymore. Everyone's streaming. Everyone's listening.
I don't
to
watch
this.
TV.
Why would you?
I don't watch TV either.
The
So,
news
like-
is fear mongering and it's been proven to be shit. Like it's
Yeah,
nonsense. They're all just spreading the same fake messages, especially after the COVID situation. Like just constant.
Lots of distrust.
Yeah.
yeah, media distrust is at an all-time high.
Oh, we're getting deep now.
Not
Yeah,
like-
I
not
know. Look,
like us.
this is not a lake I'm willing to jump into.
Okay.
No, not like us. Factual podcasters, trying to spit God's word throughout the world.
To be honest, I think it's like anything. Like these big media organizations are made up of human beings that are just trying to do their job, and then there are some people that don't do their job.
There's always bad eggs in
And it always
Yeah.
starts from the top. So you're saying it starts at the evil people at the top with all the money
Yeah.
trickling down the messages to just line their own pockets.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much having to go at Murdoch. What do you want to say, Murdoch? What do you want to say, man? What's he done?
I'm
Do
not.
not insult
I'm not
me.
willing to say anything
No,
Do
about
not throw
anyone.
stones
no.
at the Messiah.
No, but it is. I do think it's good that there's multiple ways to consume your media now,
you
and
get choices.
but it is. It's very weird. I think media literacy is something that should be taught in schools these days because it has the internet has opened us up to all information. It's very hard to know what's real and what's not real. Like, you can't say mainstream media is always wrong, but you can't say they're always right either.
Yeah.
And you can't say podcast is or alternative
sounds.
media is always wrong and always right. It's hard to.
You can't always believe what you hear. Maybe that's when the rumor about me started circulating, and then you should have been able to determine that was untrue.
It's not a rumor, bro. It's a truma.
You're spreading it, obviously.
Yeah, well, I
What
was
room
there.
is this?
I can't remember. What
You're a
was I
shit
doing?
bloke.
Oh yeah, clicking and
Is it a rumour that you're a shit bloke? Or was it a
talking down
fact?
to
No,
fringes. Yeah, truma.
I'd consider it a fact, to be honest.
Truma fact, same.
I'm dyslexic. I don't remember names that well. If that's
Oh,
what you mean.
fuck, crime you a river.
Yeah,
Are you really dyslexic though?
Yeah, actually.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah,
Nah,
there
still-
you go.
still
See,
where?
there you go. Now you feel bad. Do you?
No,
Yeah.
it's all right.
You
I
sit
was
there.
joking. That was a joke.
You
Are you really
dyslexic.
dyslexic?
Yeah, I'm
Okay, well,
disadvantaged.
my bad.
Have a cry.
I
I'm
apologise.
not crying. I'm here smiling.
Yeah, I know, but you just I'm dyslexic. Yeah, so what? We're all,
I'm here smiling about it.
No one's,
I'm-
no one's
mate,
perfect.
Exactly. Because I'm here. I'm doing my best. I'm having a crack. Nothing's
up.
going to hold me down. No limitations. Do your best for what you got. Otherwise, you figure out a way to do it.
What have you got?
Denan.
Didn't it?
Denan. Mr. Kemp.
Bloke in a bar.
Bloke in a bar. So,
Where'd that name come from? Were you sitting in a bar one day? The
No,
only
no.
bloke in the bar.
The name came from, so Shandor Earl reached out to me years and years ago. He's like, mate, love what you're doing. I'd
He's
love
a
to
legend,
do.
nation.
Oh, legend. And he's also a fuckwit because he's so hot.
He's
Yeah.
a great
Pisses me
sword,
off.
honestly.
Nailed it.
What's wrong
Nailed
with
it.
him?
Yeah,
What's wrong with him? He's too good.
Fuck that guy.
There's got to be some
seriously.
issues. It has to be. It can't be that perfect.
He can't be. He's intelligent, he's successful,
Driven.
and he's hot as anything.
Good
Yeah.
bloke too.
His fashion sense.
Gotta be
maybe.
something.
It's
He's
like-
gotta be something.
he's at that stage where like he knows he's that good looking. He can just wear whatever, and it just might make sense.
Yeah.
He's wearing a fur coat the other day, like a purple fur coat.
And it probably looked mad.
Yeah, and honestly it did, and I was just like, it shouldn't look good, but it does look good. So fuck you, Shandor.
Shandor. Anyway, he reached out. He said, "Oh, I love what you're doing. Love to do something with you." And at that stage, I was like, "Look, I don't know if I'm confident in like talking about rugby league. I don't want to bag the boys. I don't know if I'm, I guess, skilled enough to critique the players without being a dick
You
about
should
it."
pass that message on an NRL 360, I reckon. Maybe send them a letter. Maybe. I don't know.
And so I was like thinking about it. I was like, "Look, how about I make a show for you? I'll edit everything, give you the equipment. You just talk about footy." And he was like, yeah, sweet. And then, I was just thinking about names for the show, like, what should we call it? What should we call it? And honestly, I was like lying in bed halfway between sleep and wakeness, and then bloke in a bar just like came at just, I don't know,
Boom.
just out of nowhere, just hit me. And I was like, oh, that's
An epiphany.
perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah, right.
And that's how the name came about.
So that's where it started. So, and you've obviously grown the business massively since then. So, what's Denan's 5-year plan from here? Where do you see yourself? Where do you see the business going in 5 years?
Oh, well, I hope we're one of the biggest beers in the country. That's
Yep.
my hope.
Yep.
In regards to podcasting, I hope we're the number one footy show, not just number
Behind
one
us.
sports podcast.
Behind us.
Behind you, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on. Aim like realistically. We're not.
Switch on.
We're talking about being
apologies.
disillusioned.
Apologies. I didn't know that you were just sport. I thought you were just number one podcast
Yeah,
series,
true,
like across the board.
We are.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my hope is to be the number one rugby league show. That's on podcast, and then from
Network?
there, potentially push out into
Like
a network.
Fox Sports type gig.
Maybe it again. I would go more the route of setting up podcasts, like rather than like a 24-hour news cycle kind of thing. It would be more like, okay, well, we've got our rugby league podcast. Maybe we do some MMA podcasts and boxing ones. AFL maybe down the line. Again, that'd be tough because obviously the crossover's not there. But at this stage, I think that if you got something good, don't be distracted by spreading yourself thin and going, oh, all right, we're killing it in league.
What's
Let's
next?
do boxing. Let's do MMA. I sometimes think you got to focus in on and just make sure that, when Bloke in a Bar podcast not even close to where it can be in long term. Like, I think only a couple of weeks ago we had a record episode. I think we had like about 56,000 downloads
Wow.
and 35,000 views on YouTube. So about 90,000 in total for one episode.
That's
Who
like
was
half
that?
hours.
Who was
That's
that?
crazy.
That was just a review.
Really?
Our reviews is our biggest shows. Our Monday review of us talking about rugby league is our biggest show, and we get anywhere from 40 to 50,000 downloads and 25 to 30,000 views on YouTube. So you're looking at about 60 to 70,000 downloads per episode. But my hope is long term is like, can we get it up to 150,000?
That's the
people
goal.
listening, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think the first month of the year we had 500 or 500,000 unique listeners for the month as well. So that's an important start.
How did you start growing? Like our fill-in producer, because we're trying to find another one, and it hasn't exactly hit the mark. So we're trying to learn. Like you're a really big podcast. How did you start growing and what?
Mate,
did you do?
consistency.
Just
Yeah,
consistency.
I've had that before.
Yeah, consistency. And putting out a lot of content. That's what it is. It's
We need to
honestly,
hang out more and like do funny shit together like we used to.
Yeah, I know.
But now we're living on the other sides of the world.
You're so far from me.
You're so far from
and I
everyone.
don't like you as much anymore.
Well, okay, well, we should have done the podcast years ago when we were friends.
But now we're here now. We get to figure it out.
We're just associates now.
Yeah. We could do
Colleagues.
Zoom stuff together, like on the FaceTime. Like,
I
how
don't-
are you doing? I'm on a rock too.
No, I don't. No, seeing you twice a week is enough. So,
Far way too much.
way too
Yeah.
much.
Anyway, back to our guest. You've been
Yeah, no,
rude.
I
So
do
talk to our
actually.
friend.
No, I recall actually we had a really good chat in Adelaide about
In the cab?
In the cab after the experience,
not the Uber.
not the
Without
Uber
a swinger,
cab.
without a swinger.
You were talking about. I don't know if you want to talk about this or not, but how the NRL you think might have been a bit short-sighted in the fact that they signed that big media deal. You think they should sort of do their own network or something?
I think like
I thought this was a really good
long-term-
idea.
Well, I just think that long term, and look, this takes money. It's always so easy to talk about spending someone else's money.
Yeah.
But I would love for the NRL to be able to build out their own content and also create a situation where you could subscribe to the NRL's app and watch the footy straight from there. Now, that costs a lot of money to produce. So that would mean that they would film the games, they would pay for all, like instead of Fox Sports and
Instead of
9 and
Fox.
that,
Yeah.
you would have NRL down there doing it all. I think the NFL does it, and then they just sell the product onwards. Now,
Wow.
if you could somehow create an environment where you could make it so people can subscribe to the NRL's app or whatever it is to watch rugby league, streaming service, then in 10 to 20 years, you're in a much stronger position because you can say, well, we have this huge stream of revenue. We don't have to be beholden to the networks. And then the networks have to, I guess, offer more to get rights to the game because the NRL can say, well, we own woe to go, A to B. We film all the stuff. You watch all the stuff on our app. Now, rugby league should always be on free to air. So there's always a space for that, and there always should be a space for that. But it just puts you like the reason why the AFL are in such a better position than us is because they own Marvel Stadium and it's worth like $1 billion. So if the Fox or 9 ever come to them and say we're going to lowball you, they can say, fine. What we'll do is while we find a deal with another network, we'll just take a loan from. We'll take a loan
Line of credit
on our line of credit from the fact that we have $1 billion asset, and so the game will be fine. Whereas NRL are in a situation at the moment where they're beholden to the networks. We have no assets, no fallback plan. We almost, to a degree, have to fall back on whatever they offer now, or we just have the only other fallback is we might go to Channel 10, we might go to Channel 7. Whereas AFL have the fallback of, no, we could fund this game until we find the right deal. And that's why I think they get about $100 million more a year on their deal than we deal.
That is humongous.
Even though rugby league is the most watched sport in the country without even including Origin.
That's nuts, eh?
That's crazy.
Does that include cricket as well? I thought cricket was the...
Nah, it wouldn't be anyway.
It's number one. Last year was the number one watched sport in the country, rugby league. Now, to be fair to AFL is more of a game you want to watch live.
Their fans, they're like a
so they,
fan base.
Yeah,
They get like
and it's
100,000
in the culture to go watch the game.
100,000 club
and it's just
games.
a better game to watch because it's an expansive game where you've got to watch the whole field, like soccer. Whereas league, you only need to really see where the ball is. And it's actually better to watch it on TV. So we've got this great TV product. We have the most views. The networks actually I don't think they make any money off the AFL having packed stadiums. So the fact that they have $100 million more on their deal is pretty crazy. Now, I think our rights deal comes up 2025 maybe, or 26, 27. And also the context of when they signed it. It was in the middle of COVID. So you can understand why the NRL are like, let's just be safe here, lock it down. We need the money. But I'd love the game. I'd love NRL to get in a position where we have an asset where we're a bit stronger at the negotiation table.
I think they're working on that, aren't they? That's
I don't know.
crazy idea. That'd be a great idea.
I love the idea. I remember hearing that, I was like, wow, I never even thought about it from that point of view. It's very smart. And you
Get him on the committee.
Well, you obviously don't look that smart, so I was just surprised that you said something so smart.
Well, how can a guy this hot be this smart?
I don't know, man.
You can't have it all unless you Channel L.
Denan Earl?
Yeah.
Denan Earl,
Yeah.
Denan Wildlife? Anyway, look, wrapping up here, but the question that we're asked every guest, we're starting to anyway, is what was the one point in your life, obviously this podcast is called Stuck in the Middle, was there a point in your life where you felt stuck in between a rock and a hard place, stuck in the middle of two tough choices, anything along those lines, whether it was footy, the podcast, life in general. I think maybe even the pub before you were saying could be that.
Yeah, the pub was definitely the hardest position in my life in regards to making decisions because, a lot of people would have maybe walked away from the situation and said, like, it's done, it's not working. But I just always had a belief that if you just keep turning up, it'll turn around. Turn around. And that's the same with the podcast. Like, you just keep putting out content. Now, I mean, look, we're in 2023. I think I started in 2015. So a lot of people see the last couple of years and they go, wow, this is, this has come out of,
nowhere.
But it's been going on for a very, very long time. So whenever I'm, making it, there's a tough period or stuck in the middle or whatever, I just always say to myself, all you got to do is just turn up one more day than the other bloke and you win. So
That's really good advice. That's outstanding.
That's our best answer so far.
They gave me a business hard on.
Yeah. Bit stiffy.
Yeah, bit stiffy.
You got a business iffy.
I do.
Prove it.
I do. After the show.
Yeah.
Well, Denan, thank you very much for coming on Stuck in the Middle. Really
Thanks,
appreciate your time and your advice and your wisdom.
Hey, we got a few fan questions.
Oh, we got fan questions.
Oh,
yes.
stop it.
Yes.
Liam Nicholas has asked, would you rather speak every language fluently or play every instrument perfectly?
Oh,
I'm going every language, bro.
I'm going every instrument.
I'm
Why?
Well, think about, okay, like
Yeah, I'm going instrument too.
a lovely lady comes back and you get on and playing a bit of Beethoven or something like that. That's game over, baby. Whereas, like, speaking a bit of French, like,
Every language perfectly. So you can go to
yeah,
China.
but like she'd be like, that's a bit weird.
Yeah, you're afraid.
Yeah,
So
like-
what, do you think being able to know how to play every instrument, sweet?
That's,
No, but
that's
it's
beautiful.
attractive,
You're
yeah.
creating art.
I would imagine like just being able to pick up a guitar and just go.
Yeah.
Piano, actually, a piano would be mad.
You know,
Yeah.
what's your favourite song?
Bust down.
Funny you say that. I've got a guitar with me and we're in the
Oh,
middle of a
yeah,
restaurant.
Funny
Yeah,
enough, you start staring at anyone at any time.
We've got a couple more. Got time for a couple more, Dan? Do we have time for a couple more? A couple more. All right. What do we got, Liam? Anything else?
There's one that I cannot ask.
Oh, is it the mum one? Mum dad one?
Yeah,
We'll ask off there.
that one's crook.
That one's cool, guys. Yeah.
That's weird that your audience would be crook. That's weird.
It's strange, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't
Wouldn't really think
understand
Would
that.
you?
Yeah, Lockie Hannigan. Maybe just
relax,
look
bro.
yourself in the look yourself in the mirror, brother.
Take your foot off the gas a bit.
We appreciate your support. Yeah, just calm it down. Maybe just have some more conversations with other people and figure out that's not okay.
Touch a bit of grass.
Touch a bit of grass.
Touch a bit of grass.
Yeah, touch a bit of grass.
Breathe a bit of air.
Yeah.
Play some mindfulness.
Yeah.
Talk to your parents and ask what happened. I don't know.
Oh.
Appreciate you though, brother. Probably just dial it back.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Please like, subscribe, comment, and everyone here loves you. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
See ya. Yeah.
Peace. Peace.
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 This podcast was made by Afternoon Sport Group.